Hello, everyone, and welcome to BodyBags. I'll be your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Tats. It's been a really good week here at BodyBags. A nice week of quiet, peaceful, thought-provoking reviews. What do you say we stir the shitstorm a little bit, huh? What do you guys think about that? All right, today I'm going to review, you already know what it is by seeing the title of the video. Today I'm going to review the 2022 version of Rob Zombie's The Munsters. And I gotta be honest, I liked the movie. I thought it was a good film. Is it a perfect film? No. Is it a film that if you're a Munsters fan, do you think you would like it? Possibly. Uh, if you give the movie a chance, that is. Where to begin with this movie? Okay. Um, the movie, personally, I think is a lot of fun. It's I've been reviewing Rob Zombie movies on the channel before. I've reviewed Rob Zombie movies on my old channels and things like this. And, one thing I've always said about Rob Zombie is that, I've always been a fan of his. I love his music. I love his movies, things like this. Um, but one thing I've always said was, it's like as much as I enjoy him doing the Chainsaw Massacre inspired, redneck characters, killing redneck characters, and stuff. And I would like to see him do something different, kind of, try some kind of other, subgenre of horror, something like that. He finally did, you know, and I think it's so funny. I mean, let's be realistic here, okay? It's almost like it's like it's in vogue. It's the in thing to do to hate on Rob Zombie. Now I know there are people out there that genuinely hate him. They hate him. They hate his movies, things like this. Whatever, to each their own. Um, but I'm also willing to bet though too. There are some people they're probably hating Rob Zombie and they don't even know why they hate him. They just hate him because it's like it just seems like the in thing to do. It's just everybody else hates him, so I guess maybe I should too. You know, but I don't know. But this was a movie that Rob had been trying to make, for about 20 years. He'd been working on this. He made it clear when he was making House of a Thousand Corpses. He was telling Universal he wanted to make this movie, and through years and years, nothing happened. Came close a few times, but issues with the rights and things like that. Kept getting you know turned around, switched around, picked up, dropped, all this other kind of stuff, and then finally, he got the chance to do it. Then he got a pretty you know I'd say maybe a decent budget. That's it was funny. A lot of the rumors that came out when it came out that Rob was going to make this movie. The first rumor being that he was going to make it a Rob Zombie movie, which meant this movie was going to be a hard R-rated, violent, vulgar, full of nudity. What you expect from a Rob Zombie movie. You know, uh, the one thing I thought when I read that rumor is like I thought it'd be funny. It's like one of the main things that Herman Munster always did on the show. Was when he would get upset, he'd be like, "Darn, darn, 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 darn." I was thinking to myself like, well, if he's gonna do it already, we know what word Rob's gonna replace "darn" with, don't we? But that was one of the first rumors that came out about this was it was going to be a very violent, vulgar, R-rated horror film. Then turns out no, it's going to be PG. It's going to be a family film and everything, and he's going to try to keep it very much in spirit with, the TV show. But we weren't getting a lot of information. I mean, now we know that the movie is actually a prequel leading into the TV show. Another rumor came out that the movie was going to clock in about 3 hours long. No, it's not. It's about an hour and 45 minutes. Another rumor dropped. Then, like, people wondered why he didn't shoot the movie in black and white. It's like, well, had to do because, that, he said that he did propose the idea of shooting the movie in black and white, but when he read the room, the executives at Universal were like, not digging it. They're not having it. So he's like, do you want to get the movie made or not? So he decided to go ahead and shoot it in color. Now, another rumor came up that he had like, what was it, like a $50 million budget and everything? And he's like, I wish I had a $50 million budget. When you watch this movie, especially if you watch the hour long documentary accompanying the movie, I'm sure there are probably a lot of people out there that have reviewed this movie and they'll be like, "Oh, there's no way in hell I'm going to watch that crap." Sure, whatever, but they did what a lot of low budget filmmakers can do, and it has been done and it results in a good movie. You don't have a lot of money, you use what you have available. You use whatever means you have necessary made to you, things like that. And that's what Rob did. One of the things you're going to notice, the three main actors here, actually four main actors, okay? Because you got Sheri Moon as, Lily, you got Jeff Daniel Phillips as Herman, you got Daniel Roebuck as Grandpa Munster. All three of them play different characters in the movie. The main reason why, because they couldn't hire a really big crew, because at the time they were shooting this is back when the pandemic was pretty much in full swing, and they were shooting in Bulgaria, or it was Hungary. Yeah, it was Hungary, Bulgaria. Uh, but also too, I mean, think about it. Okay, if this movie had, a $50 million budget, what would they be talking about? Okay, you really think these three would have wound up being the cast? No. Okay, let's be real here. If this movie had a $50 million budget or more, okay, they would have been like, you got to hire name stars. We're putting that kind of money into this movie. You need to hire name stars. You know, we need like Scarlett Johansson to play Lily, or we need like Anthony Hopkins to play, the Count, or something like. You get the idea of what I'm saying. But anyway, so really what it boils down to is this movie. There's not really like a big storyline. It's not much of a plot to it per se, but it does feel almost like watching, especially if you watch in black and white, which I strongly recommend you do. This movie, the color and everything looks really good, but a little too colorful for my taste, a little cartoony looking. But I would strongly say if you're gonna watch it, honestly, just turn the picture or turn the not the picture, turn the color off on your TV and just watch the whole thing in black and white. It looks so much better. This movie looks amazing in black and white. It looks fantastic, you know. But anyway, so the story is basically it's all kind of an origin story. It's about how Herman Munster was created, and that Lily Munster, she's kind of sad and melancholy. She's looking for love. At one point, her father tries to hook her up with this character, Count Orlok, which is essentially the Nosferatu vampire, which Richard Brake played. That was a thing that stunned the hell out of me. I didn't even know that until I watched the commentary. I didn't even think to check the end credits, because I turned the movie off. Then when I was watching the movie with the commentary, that's when I found out that Richard Brake played Count Orlok. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Oh my God. It was amazing, And I think, what's his name? Robert Eggers, the one who did Northman. I think he's supposed to be doing the movie version of Nosferatu and everything. It's just my opinion. You really ought to consider Richard Brake for playing that role. I mean, he just looks so perfect in this movie as Orlok. But anyway, so a Dr. Wolfgang, who is also played by Richard Brake, and his, assistant Floop, played by Jorge Garcia from Lost, they put Herman together. There's kind of a young Frankenstein inspired moment where Floop is supposed to get the brain of one person, but makes a mistake, gets the brain of another person. Herman is created, and then at first it turns out that the brain that they put in Herman's body is the brain of an old that is a bad, horrible comedian. And so, Herman in this version, he's like wanting to become a star. He's wanting to become a celebrity. He wants to be, like a big comedian and all this other kind of stuff. He ends up, and Floop kind of gets him into making rock and roll music and all this kind of stuff, and he becomes a celebrity. Well, anyway, he and Lily meet. They start to fall in love, and meanwhile, the Count, played by Dan Roebuck, he ends up he's not too keen on the whole, idea of Herman and Lily being married, and so so he's like trying to get Lily to give up on him. Meanwhile, you got Lily. One little mistake that they made. It's not a huge mistake, but just one little thing that they made was in the movie. You have Lester, who is Lily's brother. Now, in the movie version, Lester is the older brother of Lily. But if you actually watch the show, Lester is actually Lily's kid brother. She's older than him. Little mistake, no big deal. It's not nothing that's going to end the world, I think. But so Lester, he turns out that he's in debt to this lady Zoya Krupp. And so she tells him basically, you got to get me the deed to the Count's castle. Otherwise, I'm going to have your head on a platter, pretty much. And so he ends up, because Herman is kind of the dope that he is, he's able to swindle Herman into signing over the castle. And then the Count finds out about it. And then, they end up having to, they have to leave their castle. They're being pushed out of Transylvania. So, Herman decides to move them to Hollywood, and then they meet Barbara Carr, who is played by, Cassandra Peterson, Elvira. So it's always great to have her in a movie. So they get there, they find the house on 1313 Mockingbird Lane, which it turns out Barbara just wants to get rid of it, because it's the Munsters' house. It looks like the way the Munsters' house would look. The set design is amazing, how they, rebuilt the house and everything. So they move in, and the funny part is they move in on, I think it's funny. I know a lot of people, it's not funny, but I think it's funny that they moved in on Halloween Day, so they think that they're moving into a neighborhood where kind of like everybody is like them, but then it turns out no, they're not. And then they realize that they're stuck in this situation. They have to make the best of it. But then Lester comes in, and I'm not even going to say spoiler alert. There's not really anything to spoil, because if you know anything about the Munsters, you already know where this movie's heading. You know, so Lester comes in, and he's he made a lot of money. They're rich, and Herman gets the job at the funeral parlor and all this, and that's pretty much where your movie ends. So I think that this is going to be it's going to be hard to talk about this movie and not bring up Rob Zombie's Halloween. Okay, that was a problem. Okay, ever since Rob Zombie remade, the original Halloween. Okay, this has been a problem, and this has followed Rob Zombie ever since. And there are people out there. It doesn't matter. You're gonna have to accept this. There, if you're a diehard Rob Zombie fan, you're just gonna have to accept the fact there are people out there. No matter what, nothing Rob has ever or will ever do is going to make up for this. It's just not going to happen. Okay. For those who don't, may not understand the whole situation. Okay, back when Rob Zombie, did his Halloween movie, first of all, Rob, was doing interviews saying he hated remakes. He didn't like the idea of Dawn of the Dead and Chainsaw Massacre and stuff being remade. Then he goes and he remakes Halloween, which was a movie that most people did not want made in the first place. Okay, then he started doing more interviews, and the big problem came with he kept flip-flopping his answers from interview to interview. In one interview, he says, it's like, I'm not going to explain Michael Myers. The next interview, he says, I'm going to explain Michael Myers. One interview, he says, I love the movie. I think it's a masterpiece. It's great. It's wonderful. I love it. It's just such a great film. Next interview, he's talking about all these problems he had with the movie. I hated the character of Dr. Loomis because he always seemed like he was crazy and drunk, and no wonder why people didn't believe him. I hated that Laurie Strode was, such a goody two-shoes, and, I just didn't like that character. I hated that he stole the mask from the hardware store. I hate the fact that he drives a car. I hate this. I hate that. I hate this. I hate that. What else was there? He made the movie. Then, he's like, they asked him, would you ever do a sequel? I'm never going to do a sequel. I made my movie. It has a beginning, a middle, and end. I'm not touching Halloween ever again. Then he makes a sequel. Then the big thing that really pissed everyone off was the fact that, on the bonus features for Halloween, he said, he said, when I got the gig, I called John Carpenter out of respect, and he said, hey, man, go for it. Make it your movie. I'm behind you. I support you, so on and so forth. Then on the documentary, Halloween, The Inside Story, he said, oh, I called John Carpenter. He was very cold and very distant, and, he didn't support me at all, and all this kind of stuff. And that pissed off John Carpenter because Carpenter felt like, Rob was blaming him and essentially throwing him under the bus because people didn't like Rob's movies. So they've been in a war about it. But from what I've heard is, basically that John and Rob have gotten together and they sorted out their differences and they're friends again. So the way I feel about it at this point, if John can forgive him, I feel like I can too. It's time to move on. That was 15 years ago. It's time to move on. Okay, the original Halloween, the movie is 44 years old. Everything that can be done to that movie has been done. The movie has been sequelized up the yin yang. It has been mocked. It has been spoofed. It's been put down. It has been remade. It's been rebooted. Nothing hurts it. Halloween is just as popular. The movie, the original Halloween, is just as popular now as it's ever been. Okay, nothing will ever hurt that movie. That movie has already stood the test of time. It has endured, and it's just going to keep on. So I think it's time to just move on past all that. Anyway, getting back to this. Uh, but the thing was one thing that's going to bother a lot of people was that Rob made a lot of changes to Halloween, but in this, he made it a point to stick it very closely and to try to be as faithful to the source material as he could be. Okay, which he did. And you know, and here's the problem that I have. It's like in gearing up for this review, I watched a number of you know, other reviews, and a lot of the things they were saying. The big problem is the script. They never should let Rob write the script. They should have let somebody else write the script, or they should have got somebody else to make it all together. Okay, you know what? Go on YouTube, look at how many videos you have about how many videos are there about Rings of Power. How many videos are there about She-Hulk? Where the one thing that they're constantly complaining about is the fact that, they stray so far away from the source material. Okay? You have a guy who made a movie, he tried to stick as close to the source material as he could. Okay? And another thing is too, it's like, okay, let's examine that thought just for a second, okay? All right, well, they should have got like another, writer, director and all that kind of stuff. Here's the problem. You know what? If you did get like a modern screenwriter, a modern director to handle this subject matter, you know what? Okay, one thing I do miss about the movie that, it's not a big gripe. I understand why, but, one thing I do miss having Marilyn in the movie because, Marilyn, that whole dynamic that she had with the family and everything else, it does I do kind of miss it, and it is kind of sadly lacking from the movie. But again, I get it. It's a prequel. I get why it's not there. And I understand why Eddie's not there either. Here's the problem. If you had gotten a modern, I guarantee this is what would happen. If you had gotten a modern day screenwriter or a modern day director to handle this, not only would Marilyn be in the movie, Marilyn would be the entire focus of the movie. The movie would be all about her. What they did in the show was they made an ironic joke that, Marilyn was this, because she's a beautiful, gorgeous, blonde with a heart of gold and everything else. And it turns out in the Munster family, she's she's the outcast. She's the ugly duckling. She's the black sheep of the family and all this kind of stuff. It was meant as an ironic joke. The problem is, like modern day screenwriters, they would have taken that and they would have played that shit as serious as possible. Okay, they would have written Herman and Grandpa to be so unlikable because they would be discriminating against her so much, and the whole thing would be about Marilyn and how she would have to deal with being being discriminated against by her own family, and being discriminated against by everybody else because of her family and all this kind of stuff. They would take what was meant to be an ironic joke and they would make it the serious fucking thing you've ever seen. Okay, in this movie, like I am just so happy right now that we have a movie that, I mean, okay, maybe not every joke lands, but you know what? I am just happy that we have a movie that tries to be fun, that tries to be entertaining, that tries to adhere to the source material. When I think of the alternatives, I would much rather stick with this. Okay? This is fine for me. When I think of the performances, okay, when I went into this, I did not sit here and think I'm going to compare Jeff Daniel Phillips to Fred Gwynne. Because it's not possible. Fred Gwynne is Herman Munster. That will never change. Nobody's going to outdo him. Okay? And the same thing with Sheri Moon and Lily. Okay? I did not go in here thinking I'm going to compare them to the original actors, even though it's like, yeah, you probably should because it's a prequel to the show. But I mean, I think, okay, they did all right. Dan Roebuck steals the show. As the Count, he's got it. He's got it down pat. He does a phenomenal job. But Jeff Daniel Phillips as Herman. Okay, it's like, I think they probably could have like auto-tuned his voice just a little bit to kind of give him that kind of booming voice that Herman had, but whatever. It's like, it's fine. His Herman Munster didn't bother me. I could watch it. It doesn't upset me or anything like that. It's not going to replace Fred Gwynne for me, obviously, but still. Sheri, I had no problems. I thought she did fun as Lily. It's like, I understand she's kind of doing like the hand gestures, kind of like Yvonne DiCarlo did. She kind of overdoes it, but still. You know what? It's like, honestly, still, I was just so happy, that we had a movie that was trying to be fun, that was trying to be entertaining, something in time for Halloween. The last couple of years, I mean, when, it's nice to try that they're trying to get fun family movies for Halloween again, you know? And so honestly, it's like I have no qualms with this movie. I enjoy this movie. Um, I've watched it already. I've watched it like 3 or 4 times. It doesn't bother me. I still love the show. I'm always going to love the show. This is not going to replace the show for me. But then again, it's not supposed to, you know? But that's just it. I mean, you can have at me in the comments, but, honestly, I like this movie. And I had fun with it. Like I said, it's not going to replace the show. I definitely recommend watching it black and white instead, but it is what it is. When I think of, the crap that Hollywood is churning out nowadays and what the alternative to this would have been, where we would have a movie that, like I said, the entire focus of the movie would be all about Maryland. The other monsters would barely be in it, and they would be written as the most awful people in the entire world, and all this kind of stuff. It would be woke. It would be, just, ugh. There would be no fun in it. They wouldn't even try to attempt humor in it. So it's like, honestly, I'll take this any day. So that's it. So here we go. So that's it. If anybody took the time to watch all of this, I'm sorry. I know I went on too long. I always do. But if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you haven't already, go and please subscribe to the BodyBags channel. We have a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. I'm the Saturday reviewer. We have a lot of great guys. Everybody's doing really good stuff. And got more fun theme weeks and everything else coming. So that's it, everybody. So take care. Have a good night. I'll see you later.